Dear Mattsons, my kid is addicted to their phone. Help! Sincerely, no more screen time. All right, there you're going to get some cheese from us. This is a great question. Did you know that these things were created to addict us? That's a fact.
It's a bummer.
It's an interesting thing, but psychologists were hired and others to do that. Now, are we against all technology? Absolutely not. No, we both have iPhones. How we use those, though, is important, and that modeling is really important as it relates to this question with your kid addicted to their phone. So where are you at, right? That's the starting point.
Starting point is mom, dad. Yeah. Well, how much is that phone in your hands? And we're guilty. You're guilty. No, I'm kidding. We're guilty. I'm one of the worst in our home and feeling like it's constantly pulling at us. And so recognizing that it is a means of addiction, we are pretty much handing crack to our children when we hand them a smartphone. So when I say it that boldly, it's because you need to remember that it's an addictive device. Yep. And so being able to think through parameters, it's not like you can have just a little bit of heroin. It's like a full-fledged, it's going to addict you. So you have to have rules and regulations around the iPhone, but the biggest is the modeling. And so kids are watching us. And in fact, kids are actually pretty annoyed with their parents in general. We hear that a lot with how their parents are engaging with their phones themselves. So start with us. How am I doing? Do I have time away from my phone? Is it always with me? Is it time at nighttime? Do I put it away?
Right.
Sometimes trying things like taking off the color on a phone or
making it less interesting. Did you know that you can do that? It's absolutely true. You can make your smartphone less interesting so you want it less. And it's kind of funny because you're paying so much for it and why you would want it less. But keeping the main things the main things. It's such a practice that we all have to do. And in a family system, one of the things that's so great about it is it's just talking about the temptation, the trickiness of it, the pull that you and they may be having with their phone, and coming up with some solutions together, like doing it relationally together, so that it's not a come down and a discipline all the time. I mean, this used to be, before smartphones, they were just phones. And let's remember that, and how we use those. We want to experience life, and we want to, the data is out there and just about how troubling it can be. There's diagnoses now that are directly related to smartphones and to gaming and to other pieces. And so we just have to, the solution is relationships. It's not isolation, it's relational. That's a lot of where the solutions lie, right? Yeah.
And so the why. We always talk about the why with our kids, so they don't feel like that you're the only mean parents in the world who are regulating their phones. Everybody has them, at the age of 9 nowadays. And so the piece of recognizing that brain development is happening, and while the brain is developing, what kind of things am I feeding it? And those neural pathways are getting locked into I needing to look at my phone all the time. And even selfies, the way that kids are taking selfies all the time is super dangerous, and reframing how they view themselves, right? Constantly looking at themselves and not enjoying being present. So we're talking to our kids about how smart they're going to be without their smartphone, the longer that they are able to stay without it.
Probably a lot smarter and a lot wiser.
Yeah. It's not a necessity. So that's another thing I'm talking about. It's not a need. We can live without them. And in fact, kids that go to camp and they, ask them not to take their cell phones, it's like their best week. And they realize
that just happened.
How freeing it can be for kids all the time. We hear it all the time in our offices that it's the best week of their life to not be attached to that phone. The anxiety goes up. It goes up for us. So if there is a true addiction, so let me just speak to this as a mental health provider. It is a reality that children can be addicted. It is not safe to take away their phone. They can have major withdrawals, just like a heroin addict or an alcoholic. We have to be very thoughtful. So you'll need professional help if it truly is an addiction. I know we throw that word around in our culture as if, we're all addicted. So there's a spectrum. And if you're over here, if you're seeing your kid really having anxiety attacks and significant depression and issues when their phone phone is pulled away, then that's something you're going to need to get some professional help and work a process. But for the rest of us, think about ground rules for everyone in the house. And if you're going to have your kid have that ground rule, then we also need to have that ground rule.
Yeah, I would just also say it's about trust, right? Let's not be so about the negative. Let's think about the positive. What is it about? It's about trust. It's about relationship. And if you can start early developing that kind of trust outside of technology, then you have the context for trust with technology. And giving opportunities to earn trust and to hold and maintain trust is so important. And talking about when that trust is broken, what happened, and perfect opportunities for grace in that space to be able to say and show what grace actually is. Unmerited favor. They made a mistake. I'm going to show you grace in this situation. You deserve a consequence. At this time, we're going to show grace in this space. And you don't do that every time. Consequences are some of the best ways in which we learn how valuable trust is. This is a relationship thing. This is a turn towards each other. And, and the other thing too is that, you could start out like we did. We just gave our kids flip phones. They had to text, A, beep, 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 beep. They hated it. And we were like, yes, they did not like their phones too much. And, they had those and they didn't know differently other than when their friends had their phones and what their phones could do. But that was a process of us developing that trust and expanding their timelines. We didn't want them to have all of that access that early. And so, now they have it. And now we're working with them in that process right from where they are now.
Yeah. So thinking about younger kids, slow it down. So start with flip phones, or there's something called the Gab device that looks like an iPhone, but it's really a stripped down version, all the way to extending into high school as much as you can, holding off on social media. Those are the major anxiety driven type mediums that are highly addictive. Email on a device. So trying to keep things simple, and then guidelines as a family, whether it's when we turn in our phones, everybody's done, who you can text, giving out your phone number, and being able to actually expose your phone anytime at all. I mean, that should be the same way for a husband and wife, that I could be able to look at things at any time. The same would be with trust building with our kids as well.
Yeah, to have nothing to hide. And if you do find something that's been hidden, or you do find things that are scary, because two lives can exist or more in computers, and that is what that is. That's a computer. That's when you really want to get some help, and turning towards your kid, turning towards one another it's a relational thing. That's the solution. You've heard me say it again. So we hope that helps. If you've found so much attention to your child is having towards the phone, how are you doing in that same thing? And working together, actually creating some just really good ground rules in the family system for that. And now I'm really distracted that you're doing this. So we appreciate the battle. We're in there with you, and we're trying to regulate ourselves in that process.
Are we?
We're trying. Some of us are trying harder than others.